We're starting off in Saoyang Village, which is about 3 hours into the game. So I'm just going to play through this, and you just discuss with us like what it is about this game that's like really stood out to you. And
I remember this village. Oh my goodness.
今やってる。あ、バトル入った。え？何これ？どうすんの？やられた。え？押すの？ほはイエス。は。痛い。
ロールプレイングゲーム、シャドウハーツ。
I feel like this particular area, like the Zhaoyang village, this was I would say the real eye opener when you this was the real eye opener to the game when you realize that this is not like any typical RPG that you play, because it is gory. I mean, not say gory, but it is very unnerving.
it's pretty gory. Like that's a lot of red. That's not ketchup.
Yeah, and the best part about it, if you can hear the sound effect, each time you're walking, you're hearing like splattering, because well, if you can't tell already, that's blood on the ground. And this whole village, this Zhaoyang village, is actually a village full of cannibals as well. So our 3 heroes here, Yuri, Alice, and Zhuzhen, are pretty much like I would say dinner, or in this case supper, to all of the inhabitants of this village. So yeah, very horrifying and very unnerving, but I guess that adds to the charm of what this game truly is and why it stands out among a lot of other RPGs that were out at that time.
It was definitely not Final Fantasy. The first game, when the developer created it, he was very much trying to move away from like a lot of the stereotypes of the industry, like the all the angst and the melodrama and that kind of stuff, and create something a little cerebral, like almost kind of reminds me of Persona in the way it would actually approach some of the horror elements, but this went into it much more deeply, much more aggressively. Like it's straight up horror in its presentation. You might have seen a menu there. Basically your character gets this thing called malice every time he gets into a fight, and if it goes too high, he'll basically get attacked by this creature, like a spirit inside his soul, and he can power up these demon creatures that are also like inside of him and that he can summon. And it's just very don't give this one to your kids.
I like the fusion system for Yuri as well in this game, and in the sequel I think there was another character who has that, but I guess we'll talk about that if we'll
talk about that on another episode.
Yeah, exactly. But I do like the fusion system because it's sort of like playing as the summons in the Final Fantasy games, but this time you're also controlling them like in real time as you're battling hordes and hordes of enemies as well. And yeah, I guess the enemies, the best way to describe them is they're like eldritch abominations to a whole new level, because the designs of some of them are just plain creepy as well. It's a very unsettling and unnerving game, but I think that's what makes it very, very unique as well, and in some ways a lot of fun to play.
And it's not afraid to like tackle some fairly messed up topics, like one of the like just like the family legacy of his character and where he came from and who his mother was, and the mother of one of the other characters as well later on. He's like an adopted kid, and you have to focus on his life. And if you know, does anyone know anything about alchemy and like the histories of science? because there's a character in this called Roger Bacon. If you research it, oh yeah, there's actual real characters in this from like history. Very much taking liberties, but the second game, slight spoiler, you can play as Princess Anastasia. That Princess Anastasia.
You can play as Princess Anastasia. You can play as Geppetto, as in the guy who created Pinocchio, but this time he's made in a different way, where instead of creating Pinocchio, he creates marionettes instead. So, and like in the first game, there's a character called Margaret, who's actually based off the well-known spy during World War One, where she went under the pseudonym Mata Hari. So,
I didn't know that actually. I didn't realize it was based on something. That's really cool.
It is.
But,
I mean, I had a friend. I have a friend who wasn't a big fan of like Shadow Hearts taking historical figures and making it as something of their own as well. But if they could do something, if they could take such a character and make make a good spin out of it, I think it works pretty well, especially like in the world and setting of the game.
You just reminded me of something. There is a game coming out soon called Penny Blood.
I wanted to mention about Penny Blood as well. Yeah, but I guess
it was a Kickstarter, and it's basically a spiritual sequel to this. Same people, same creators, and they're going to be working on this game.
Penny Blood is definitely a game I'll be getting. That's a definite.
はい、今から抜き打ちテストをします。じゃあ鬼火乱舞。はい。今割れなかった人は放課後に残りね。
嘘、本当？行く行く。
対100個。
例のものちょうだい。
ロールプレイングゲームシャドウハーツ。
予約すべし。
There's a very unique mechanic in this game that I'd like you to share a few thoughts on, and it's called the Judgment Ring. So feel free to... It's probably its most unique system mechanically.
Yeah, I love the Judgment Ring system because it actually keeps you on your toes. It keeps you on your feet. I wouldn't say it's the best comparison, but I thought about the Castlevania game for the Nintendo DS, Dawn of Sorrow, where when you're fighting a boss and just as you're about to beat the boss, there's this thing where you need to use your DS stylus to draw a seal to completely beat the boss, which obviously is the divisive thing, but it's one of those things where you're like, okay, I gotta keep my head and my eyes focused on the battle, because if I make one wrong move, one mistake, I'm gonna have to do the boss battle again. And I feel like Shadow Hearts has this thing going with the Judgment Ring system, which I really enjoy, because a lot of turn-based RPGs tend to be, I would say, for lack of a better term, a little bit more passive than active as well. Like, okay, you put a command in there, and then you just watch the animation and the sequence play out. But here is like you're part of the action as well, and however much you input in the Judgment Ring will determine how effective your attacks are when you're going up against the enemies. So I like the system, and I think that's what drew me to the game as well. That's what drew me to the series as well. And it's crazy because it's not just for attacking; it's for casting spells. It's even for healing using items from your inventory. So
if you
there's a lot of thought process going to it as well.
To give an example to Gamer Tom, if you do a healing spell, I don't have a healing spell right now. Okay, you can spin it, and if you hit a certain point, your healing spell will crit. But if you miss it, you're not casting that at all. It's basically like rolling the dice in a D&D game.
But it still comes down to your skill. Or do you press the button where it stops, or do you just spin it
at the right time? Did you see the thing spinning around there? I'll show you again. I'm timing. I missed, so I get the first two attacks. The other one doesn't count because I missed this. Looking at this yourself, I'm curious what you think. Just seeing this. Tom.
I think it looks interesting. The Ring of Judgment thing, I'm surprised that's not in more games. Like, it seems like that would be a pretty cool feature for these kinds of turn-based games.
I'm surprised if somebody patented it or something. It's like, no, you can't copy this. You're not allowed. I don't think
they could, but maybe give it a different name or something.
So is the aesthetic of the game, like on other levels and stuff, is it dark? I mean, you said it's a horror game, so I assume it's pretty dark. But how would you describe the world that it's in?
Real world horror. Like you literally go to London, you go to China, you go to where else do you go to? You go to
Prague is one of them, I think, because that's where you start off in the second half of the game. You start off in like the Czech Republic trying to look for Yuri, I think.
And this is around the turn of the century.
Yeah,
World War I.
Like this game. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think just before World War I.
Okay.
So this game takes place in like certain parts of Europe, but the first half was mainly in Asia, specifically China. And I kind of find the setting to be quite interesting as well, especially when they try to use like real life settings as well. For instance, there's a side quest where you go to a place called Kowloon Fortress, and the design of the design of the stage, the design of the area is actually based on what was once the Kowloon Walled City, which I've always find very, very fascinating, because it is like it is almost like a catacomb of flats and apartments and shops and whatnot that looks dirty and murky, and more often than not dark because there's not a lot of light shining in even during the daytime. And I kind of like how they actually replicated the entirety, well, not say the entirety, but most of what the Kowloon Walled City would look like in a game, in an RPG like this. And of course, when you fight the boss battle in that particular side quest, well, without spoiling too much, let's just say that you're in for a very, very gruesome rude awakening.
The backgrounds have the in-combat backgrounds aren't great, but they did CGI for the normal backgrounds, and a lot of them have aged really nicely. The budget of this game isn't quite up there as it was with the second one. Like, the second one is fully like motion captured and voice acted cutscenes. This was very much like their first stab at it, but it's still a very, as long as you don't mind random battles. And I'm trying to focus so I don't miss. Oh, perfect! Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I will say that the random battles in this game and the subsequent games that come after were pretty unnerving because of the dungeons that you go through. Because one thing I wanted to mention is that this game is so unsettling in terms of like the atmosphere, the vibe, the feel of it, and then you couple it with the soundtrack where it's I don't know how to describe it, but it does have that
very
unnerving
unsettling.
feel where
The main music is just like a woman wailing in your ear. That's the main combat theme.
Yeah.
But it's super unique, and it's one of the few that I think still holds up nowadays. You go back to a lot of these games, and they're a little
even watching you play now, the visuals still hold up to this day.
Yeah.
Like, it still looks amazing. You know,
You
for
can
a
see
for a very early launch PS2 game, it looks really, really good.
You can see the pixel preservation, or the polygon preservation, some like low resolution models, but it does still have a very strong sense of atmosphere and visual identity. You've got about 2 minutes to keep gushing about this game.
What is that? Oh, that's a hand. Okay. It looked like a piece of meat with a bone hanging out of it, but yeah.
Like I said,
yeah,
pixel
I mean,
preservation.
this game has a lot of great characters in it. The series actually on a whole had a lot of great characters in it, and I love the story as well. There's a lot of twists. There's a lot of really good twists and turns in the story, and things that you would not expect to happen, especially like in later games as well. And
You
the
spo-
side quests, oh my god, the side
Oh,
quests are just...
That's probably one of the best things
yeah.
about this game. Every character has their own set of abilities, and you have to actively engage with the side quests in order to get access to them. And there's a ton of extra story and exposition that comes with actually... no, I'll explain that to you in a second, Jax. They're probably wondering why I got an achievement in a PS2 game. So there's a website. I'll discuss that in a minute. Feel free to keep gushing,
Yeah.
Johan, about the characters,
I mean,
especially.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, the characters, they have their own certain tropes to them as well. Like you've got Yuri, who is like, he's unconventional in a way that he is an edgelord, similar to I would say similar to Squall Leonhardt from Final Fantasy VIII, but with more wit and more snarkiness to him. Like a lot of the things that come out from his mouth are just pure comedy gold, in my opinion. Especially like in the second game, because he goes through a lot of angst and he's also mourning at the same time. So when he's in that mental state, the stuff that he says are just, oh my god. It's like the writing in this game is just so good.
When I went back to this game after not playing it for like 6 years, I've forgotten just how much of a, excuse my language, how much of a prick he was.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually stay that way. Like for the whole game, he does mellow out a fair bit.
Because then he realizes his purpose. Like he's like in the story of the game itself, Kudelka is pretty much feeding him like very vague information on what he needs to do, and he doesn't realize it until like later on in the game when he starts to finally discover his purpose on what he's supposed to do, what he needs to do. And I think the character development there is really, really good, because you know, more often than not, he's like, okay, I have this girl, Alice, who I'm supposed to protect. Why am I protecting her? And what's the point of protecting her, aside from the fact that she's hot and, you know, that I just have to follow her everywhere.
The ending of the game is also very unconventional and interesting in the approach that it takes, especially with the direction that the sequel ends up taking. We won't spoil that. I urge anyone to check this out if they haven't.
And even the ending itself is unique, since it does give implication to what happens in the second game, and I think that is something that when the time comes to cover Shadow Heart's Covenant, is something I will definitely get back to, because
we will definitely get to that, because I'm excited to show just the evolution, and that's in the same hardware. That's like the same hardware generation. It wasn't a separate console. Hey there, folks. I know nobody wants to listen to a creator shill themselves for 90 seconds, so I'm not going to. If you enjoyed this, we do the show live every Sunday on Twitch at 6 p.m. BST. Feel free to pop over TNEQL. And if you would like to support us in making the channel bigger and helping it grow, you can also check us out on Patreon, also at TNEQL. Take care of yourselves. Stay beautiful.